6 months. After the divorce, the
Tôi không đồng ý
billionaire
với
boss
quyết định
gets a
này.
call. Sir,
Chúng ta cần phải
she
làm gì
named
đó
you
ngay
as
lập
the
tức.
father. Hello everyone. Before we begin today's story, I have a small favor to ask. Please hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our channel's new videos. It is quick, free, and the best way to support us in bringing you more dramatic stories. Your support means the world to us. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you very much. Nathan Reed stared out the floor-to-ceiling windows of his 63rd floor office, the skyline of New York glittering like a field of distant stars beneath the rain. The city pulsed with life far below, but inside Reed Tower, there was only silence. His reflection in the glass looked nothing like the man he had once been. The polished marble, the quiet hum of machines, the faint ticking of the antique clock on his desk, all of it felt hollow. Success had brought him everything he once thought he wanted: power, wealth, respect. Yet it had stripped away something essential: peace. The phone on his desk vibrated once, twice, then again, persistent. He hesitated before answering. "Mr. Reed?" A woman's voice, careful and professional, came through the line. "This is Dr. Elaine Porter from Mercy Hospital. I am calling regarding Emily Brooks." The name froze him. For a moment, Nathan could not breathe. Emily. It had been 6 months since he had heard her name spoken aloud. 6 months since their divorce was finalized, and their marriage buried beneath bitterness and silence. "What about her?" he managed. "She was admitted earlier this morning with complications. The baby arrived prematurely. She listed you as the father." The words struck like a physical blow. He pressed a hand to the edge of his desk, steadying himself. "That must be a mistake," he said slowly. "We have been divorced for 6 months." The doctor paused. "Mr. Reed, the child is stable, but Miss Brooks is in recovery. You are the only person she named as family." The line went quiet except for the faint hum of hospital machinery in the background. Nathan's pulse thundered in his ears. "I will be there within 30 minutes, he said at last, his voice low, controlled, but cracking beneath the weight of disbelief. He ended the call and stood still for a long moment, rain streaking the glass behind him. His assistant called through the intercom, asking if he needed the afternoon reports. "Cancel everything," he replied. "Personal emergency." Moments later, he was in the elevator, descending through the tower that bore his name. Each floor felt heavier than the last. As the doors opened to the lobby, his reflection stared back at him in the polished steel, a man who could buy anything except a second chance. Outside, the rain came harder, washing over the city streets as his car pulled into traffic. Somewhere across town, in a hospital room filled with the steady beeping of machines, lay the woman he had once vowed to love forever. And now, her child might carry his name. Nathan gripped the steering wheel tighter, the world blurring through the windshield. For the first time in years, the man who built empires felt utterly powerless. The drive to Mercy Hospital felt endless, even though it was barely 20 minutes from Reed Tower. Nathan's car moved through sheets of rain that blurred the traffic lights into red and gold streaks across the windshield. His driver spoke once, asking if everything was all right, but Nathan only gave a short nod. His throat was too tight to form words. He could still hear the doctor's calm voice echoing in his head. "She listed you as the father." The words refused to fade, repeating in rhythm with the windshield wipers. When the car stopped beneath the hospital's awning, he stepped out without waiting for an umbrella. The rain was cold, heavy, and grounding, as if punishing him for every mistake he had ever made. The sterile brightness of the hospital lobby hit him the moment he entered. The smell of antiseptic, the squeak of shoes on polished floors, the quiet murmur of voices, all so far removed from the glass and steel world he ruled every day. At the front desk, a young nurse looked up, recognition flickering in her eyes as she saw him. "Mr. Reed, Dr. Porter is expecting you. Please follow me." He followed her through the hallways, his shoes leaving faint wet prints on the linoleum. Every few steps, they passed new parents holding infants wrapped in pastel blankets, their faces glowing with joy. Each sight tightened the knot in his chest. He had once imagined moments like that with Emily back when love had felt simple. They stopped at a door marked Room 418. The nurse hesitated. "She is resting," she said softly. "The baby is in the neonatal intensive care unit, but you may see him after speaking with the doctor." Nathan nodded, pushing open the door quietly. Emily lay on the hospital bed, her dark hair fanned across the pillow, her skin pale against the white sheets. The steady rhythm of the heart monitor filled the silence. For a moment, he just stood there, afraid to move closer, afraid to see what time and heartbreak had done to her. When her eyes fluttered open, confusion flashed first, then recognition. "You came," she whispered, her voice barely audible. Nathan's composure cracked for the first time. "The hospital called," he said, his tone rougher than he intended. "They told me you listed me as the father." Emily turned her head slightly, her gaze unfocused. "I did." He took a slow breath, steadying himself. "Emily, we have not seen each other in half a year. How could that possibly be true?" A faint smile touched her lips, weary and sad. "Do you remember December, the night after the Thompson merger? We had dinner. We tried to talk." Nathan's heart clenched. He remembered the champagne, the laughter that felt forced, and later, the silence that gave way to something desperate and familiar. They had parted the next morning without a word. "You found out afterward?" he asked quietly. Emily nodded. 2 weeks after the divorce papers were signed, Nathan ran a hand through his hair, disbelief giving way to something heavier guilt. "Why did you not tell me? Would you have believed me?" she asked, her voice thin but calm. "You wanted a clean break. No alimony. No shared anything. You wanted me gone." Her words struck deeper than anger could. She was not accusing him. She was stating facts. He stepped closer to the bed, studying her face, the dark circles under her eyes, the small tremor in her hands. "Is he—" He stopped, the question catching in his throat. Emily closed her eyes. "He is yours." Silence filled the room again, broken only by the soft beeping of machines. Nathan sank into the chair beside her bed. For years, he had made decisions worth billions without hesitation, but now he could not find the right words to say to the woman who had once trusted him with her heart. After a moment, she spoke again, her tone fragile. "He is small, Nathan. Too small. They say he came early because of stress. I was alone, and I did not know who else to call." Her words carried no blame, only exhaustion. Nathan felt something twist inside him, a sharp, undeniable remorse. "I will take care of both of you," he said softly. "No," she murmured. "Just take care of him. That is all that matters." Her eyes began to close, her strength fading. Nathan reached for her hand, startled by how cold it felt. The monitor continued its steady rhythm, but the silence between them was louder than any sound. Outside, thunder rumbled over the city. Nathan sat there long after she drifted back to sleep, his hand still holding hers, his mind replaying every word she had said. In another room, a newborn slept beneath the glow of machines, unaware that his first breath had already rewritten 2 broken lives. For the first time since the divorce, Nathan realized he was afraid not of failure, not of scandal, but of what it meant to finally feel human again. When morning came, the pale light of dawn filtered through the half-closed blinds of Emily's hospital room. Nathan had not slept. He sat in the same chair where he had spent the entire night, his suit wrinkled, his hair disheveled, his thoughts tangled. Every so often, he would glance toward Emily, making sure her breathing remained steady. The weight of the night before pressed on him like an anchor. Across the hall, he could hear the faint cries of newborns, soft and fragile, yet powerful enough to stir something deep in him. When Dr. Porter entered quietly with a clipboard, Nathan stood at once. "How is she?" he asked. The doctor smiled faintly. "Stable. Her blood pressure has improved, and she needs rest. She is lucky she came in when she did. Stress can do more damage than people realize." Nathan nodded slowly, guilt tightening his chest. "And the baby?" Dr. Porter gestured for him to follow. "Come, I will show you." They walked down the hallway, past rooms filled with sleeping mothers and fathers holding tiny bundles. The neonatal intensive care unit was different. It was quiet but alive with the sounds of steady beeping and soft hisses from oxygen tubes. Inside, rows of incubators glowed under gentle lights. Dr. Porter stopped in front of one near the window. "Here he is," she said softly. Nathan stepped closer. Inside the clear glass crib lay a baby no larger than his forearm, wrapped in a pale blue blanket. Wires and sensors traced over his tiny body, his chest rising and falling with effort. The sight struck Nathan harder than any business loss or public humiliation ever could. This was not a deal he could negotiate or a crisis he could outthink. This was life, raw and fragile, and somehow it was connected to him. "He is strong for a preemie," the doctor said. He will need time, but his vitals are steady. Would you like to touch him? Nathan hesitated. Can I? She nodded and lifted the small hatch on the incubator. Just your finger. Let him feel you. Slowly, almost reverently, Nathan reached inside and placed his fingertip near the baby's tiny hand. For a moment, there was nothing, only the hum of machines. Then, instinctively, the baby's fingers curled around his. The grip was impossibly small yet sure, as if holding on to something it recognized. A rush of warmth spread through Nathan's chest, breaking past the years of ice that success had built around his heart. Does he have a name? He asked quietly. Not yet, Dr. Porter replied. His mother wanted you to choose. Nathan's throat tightened. He wanted to say something, anything, but words failed. Instead, he stayed there for a long time, watching the child breathe, his mind racing with memories of Emily's laughter, their first apartment, the promises they had made when they had nothing but dreams. He remembered how her faith in him had been unshakable, even when he lost his temper, even when he let ambition steal the best parts of him. Somewhere along the way, he had traded love for control, and by the time he realized it, she was gone. The beeping of the monitors brought him back. He looks like her, he murmured. Yes, the doctor said, smiling. He has her chin, maybe your eyes. Nathan watched the tiny hand resting against his finger. I do not know how to be a father, he admitted. Then learn, Dr. Porter replied simply. He will teach you. When he finally returned to Emily's room, the morning sun had brightened the space. She stirred as he entered, her voice weak but clear. You saw him. Yes, Nathan said, pulling the chair closer to her bed. He is beautiful. I told you, she whispered, closing her eyes. He is stronger than he looks. Nathan looked at her, realizing how much strength she herself had carried in silence. He needs a name, he said, her lips curved faintly. Then give him one. Nathan thought for a moment, searching for something that felt right. Ethan, he said finally. It means strong and enduring. Emily's eyes opened again, soft light reflecting in them. Ethan Reed, she repeated. It suits him. Nathan nodded, feeling something unfamiliar, peace, fragile but real. As Emily drifted back to sleep, he sat by her side once more, his mind no longer on meetings or mergers but on the child in the next room whose tiny heartbeat had already changed everything. The next few days unfolded in a rhythm that felt both unreal and painfully vivid. Nathan visited the neonatal intensive care unit every morning, standing by the incubator that held his newborn son. Each time, the nurses would smile gently, handing him the small sterile gloves and encouraging him to speak softly. At first, he said nothing, only watched the fragile rise and fall of Ethan's chest. But soon, his voice began to return, hesitant at first, then steadier, as if rediscovering how to speak to something pure. You are stronger than I deserve, he would whisper. But I promise you, I will try to be the man you need. The promise echoed inside him long after he left the hospital each night. On the third morning, Dr. Porter found him sitting in the hospital cafeteria, untouched coffee growing cold before him. You look exhausted, she said, sitting across from him. Nathan gave a faint smile. It has been a long time since I felt tired for the right reasons. The doctor studied him quietly. Emily is healing, but she is fragile. She blames herself for everything. You should talk to her before the silence becomes another wound. Nathan nodded slowly. I'm trying to find the right words. Sometimes the right words are not words at all, Dr. Porter replied gently. Sometimes they are presence. That afternoon, he stepped into Emily's room with a bouquet of pale lilies. She was awake, sitting up slightly, her eyes on the window where sunlight played across the white curtain. You brought flowers, she said softly. You never used to. Nathan placed them on the table near her bed. I did not know what else to bring. She smiled faintly. Silence suits us better, does it not? He hesitated. Emily, I saw him again this morning. He is gaining strength. He held my finger. Her expression softened at that, a quiet warmth breaking through the fatigue. He likes to hold on. Maybe he gets that from me. Nathan sat down, unsure how to begin. I need to tell you something. When the doctor called me, I thought it was a mistake. I did not believe, but seeing him, seeing you, he paused, searching for control. I realized how much I let my pride destroy what mattered most. I built towers for strangers, but never a home for us. Emily's eyes glistened. "Nathan, do not say things you do not mean." "I mean every word," he said firmly. "I do not expect forgiveness. I just want you to know I am sorry for leaving you alone, for making you carry everything." For a moment, the only sound was the steady hum of the machines. Emily turned her gaze to the lilies. "When I found out I was pregnant, I wanted to hate you, but I could not. I wanted you to be part of his life, even if it was just in name." Nathan reached for her hand, waiting for her to pull away, but she did not. Her skin felt warmer now, alive. "I want to be there," he said quietly. "Not just as a name, as a father." "Then be one," she said simply. "Not with words, with time." Her words struck deep. He nodded. "I will." Later that evening, as the city lights blinked outside the hospital windows, Nathan sat alone in the hallway, staring at his reflection in the glass. For years, he had measured success in numbers and deals. Now, everything he valued could fit inside a glass box the size of a suitcase. A nurse walked by, pausing briefly. "Your son's oxygen levels are improving," she said kindly. "You must be doing something right." He managed a small smile. "I am just learning." When he returned to Emily's room, she was asleep again, her breathing calm. He sat by her side and whispered, "You were right. Silence does suit us better. But maybe, just maybe, we can start over in it." The sound of rain began outside, gentle this time, washing the city clean. For the first time in years, Nathan Reed did not feel the weight of his empire pressing on his shoulders. Instead, he felt the fragile hope of a man who had finally remembered how to care. The following week brought quiet miracles that Nathan had not dared to hope for. Ethan's breathing grew stronger, the monitors showed steadier rhythms, and the nurses began speaking in gentler tones of recovery rather than survival. Each day, Nathan arrived before sunrise, the smell of coffee clinging to his hands, and stood by the incubator as the little boy's fingers reached for the world. Sometimes, Emily joined him in a wheelchair, wrapped in a soft blanket, her hair loose around her shoulders. The first time she saw Ethan open his eyes, she covered her mouth to keep from crying. Nathan stood beside her, silent, his hand hovering near hers without quite touching. "He looks curious," she whispered. "He looks brave," Nathan replied. "That is you in him." Her gaze softened, but she said nothing. The distance between them was smaller now, but it was made of fragile glass too soon to cross, too easy to break. When Ethan was finally moved out of intensive care into a regular nursery room, the nurses allowed Nathan to hold him. The moment was almost sacred. The baby was lighter than he had imagined, warm and breathing softly against his chest. Nathan stared at him in disbelief. "He is real," he murmured, as if saying it aloud might make it sink in. Emily watched from her bed, her expression unreadable. For a brief moment, the air between them felt like sunlight through winter clouds, gentle, uncertain, but filled with possibility. Later that day, Nathan met with Dr. Porter in her office. "Ethan will likely stay another 2 weeks before discharge," she explained. "But he is stable. You and Miss Brooks should start planning for home care." Nathan nodded, though the word home felt strange now. His penthouse, with its endless glass and steel, was immaculate but lifeless. Emily's small apartment, filled with soft colors and books, would be better for the baby, but it barely had room for 2 adults. "She will not want my help," he said quietly. "Doctor," Porter folded her hands, "she may not want your money, but she needs your presence. That boy will need both his parents, even if they are learning how to be human again." Her words stayed with him long after he left the hospital. That evening, he stood in the parking lot beside his car, watching the rain begin again. For years, he had measured time by meetings and deadlines. Now, everything was measured in heartbeats, his son's, Emily's, his own. When he returned upstairs, Emily was awake, reading the discharge papers Dr. Porter had left. "They think he can come home soon," she said without looking up. "Yes," Nathan replied. "You will need help." "I can manage," she said automatically. He hesitated, then spoke softly. "Emily, this is not about money. I want to be there to learn, to help with night feedings, appointments, everything." She looked up then, studying his face. "Why now, Nathan? 6 months ago, you could not stand to be in the same room with me." "Because I thought control was love," he said, his voice steady but low. "I thought if I built enough walls, nothing could hurt me. But the truth is, I destroyed the only thing that mattered. I cannot change the past, but I can show you who I am now." The silence stretched between them. Then, unexpectedly, Emily's expression softened. "You cannot fix everything," she said gently, "but you can start with one thing at a time." "Then I will start with Ethan," he answered. "And with you, if you let me." She did not reply, but when she looked back toward the nursery window, Nathan noticed her shoulders relax. He took that small change as a beginning. As the night deepened, he walked quietly down the hallway to look at his son one more time. The baby stirred in his sleep, a small sigh escaping his lips. Nathan smiled faintly. "We will figure this out," he whispered, "one day at a time." Outside, the rain slowed to a gentle drizzle, and for the first time, the city lights no longer looked distant. They looked like hope returning. 2 weeks later, Ethan was finally cleared to go home. The hospital staff gathered around with gentle smiles as Nathan and Emily prepared to leave. Emily held their son close against her chest, the tiny bundle wrapped in a blue blanket, his small breaths soft against her collarbone. Nathan stood beside her, carrying the bag of baby essentials the nurses had packed for them. The sky outside was bright and cold, sunlight spilling through thin clouds as if blessing a new beginning. For the first time in months, Emily's face showed color again, and Nathan could not help but feel that the air itself had changed. As they stepped out of Mercy Hospital, a flash of cameras caught Nathan's attention. A reporter had recognized him, New York's most private billionaire, suddenly carrying a diaper bag instead of a briefcase. The security guard moved quickly to shield them, but Nathan raised a hand. "It is all right," he said calmly. "No pictures, please." His tone left no room for argument. The reporters lowered their cameras, surprised by the gentleness in his voice. When they reached the car, Nathan opened the door for Emily, helping her inside as if she were made of glass. Once the car began to move, the world outside blurred into motion, and for a long moment neither of them spoke. Emily's eyes were on Ethan, her thumb tracing small circles over the blanket. "He is sleeping," she whispered. Nathan nodded. "He likes the sound of the road." She smiled faintly. "You noticed." "I notice everything now," he said quietly. The car pulled up in front of Emily's apartment building, a small brick structure with narrow stairs and a worn front door. Nathan hesitated as he stepped out, realizing just how different her world was from his. Yet it felt more alive than any penthouse he had ever owned. Inside, the apartment was warm, filled with soft light and the faint scent of vanilla candles. There were photos on the shelves, friends, her parents, a younger version of Emily smiling at a picnic. It was simple but full of life. Nathan stood near the doorway, unsure whether he belonged. "You can set his things there," she said, pointing to a small crib near the window. "It is not much, but it works." He placed the bag down carefully. "It is perfect." She turned to look at him. "You do not have to stay, Nathan. I can handle it from here." "I know you can," he replied, "but I want to be here, at least for the first few nights." Emily hesitated, then nodded. "All right, the couch folds out. You can take it." Later that evening, as the city outside began to glow with streetlights, Nathan found himself sitting on the edge of the couch, watching the small figure in the crib. The rhythmic sound of Ethan's breathing filled the apartment. Emily emerged from the kitchen holding 2 mugs of tea. "Chamomile," she said. "It helps me sleep." Nathan accepted it with a quiet thank you. "Do you remember the night we moved into our first apartment?" he asked. "The heater broke, and we spent the night wrapped in blankets on the floor." Emily laughed softly. "You kept saying you would fix it, but we just fell asleep instead." "It was the best night of my life," he said without hesitation. She looked at him, the warmth in her eyes mixed with caution. "It was a long time ago." "Maybe," he replied, "but some things still feel the same." The silence that followed was comfortable this time. When Emily finally went to her room, Nathan stayed up, keeping watch over their son. Every small sound made him glance up, half afraid, half in awe. At dawn, the first rays of light crept through the blinds, falling across the baby's face. Nathan leaned forward, whispering, "You are home now, Ethan, and so am I." The city stirred awake outside, but for the first time in years, Nathan Reed did not feel like a man chasing the world. He felt like a father learning how to begin again. Days began to blend into one another, not through monotony but through the quiet rhythm of a new life. Nathan learned to change diapers, to prepare bottles, to rock Ethan to sleep when the nights stretched long and heavy. His movements were awkward at first, his once steady hands trembling under the weight of a life that now depended on him. Yet each small task became a lesson in humility. He no longer issued commands. He listened, he learned, he tried. Emily watched him from across the room, often pretending to read, though her eyes followed every clumsy yet sincere gesture he made. There was something surreal about seeing Nathan read, the man who once dictated entire markets, kneel on the floor to assemble a baby crib, squinting at the instructions like an ordinary father. When the crib finally stood, slightly tilted but secure, he looked at her with an exhausted smile. "It is not perfect," he admitted, "but it will hold." Emily nodded. "So will we." That simple exchange lingered between them longer than either expected. One evening, while Ethan slept, they sat on the couch with the television on low volume, the soft light of the screen flickering over their faces. A news anchor mentioned Reed Industries, noting the recent absence of its founder. "Stockholders are asking questions," the anchor said. "Some say Nathan Reed has disappeared." Nathan muted the television, staring at the screen as if it had just revealed a version of himself he no longer recognized. "I have not disappeared," he murmured. "I just stopped running." Emily studied him carefully. "Will you go back?" "Eventually," he said. "But not until I figure out who I am outside of all that." She sipped her tea, considering his words. "You know, I used to think your company took you away from me, but now I think it was your fear. You were afraid of being ordinary." Nathan looked at her, surprised. "You always saw through me. I lived with you," she replied softly. "You forget that I knew the man before the world did." For a while they sat in silence, the hum of the city outside their only witness. The tension that had once filled every breath between them now eased into something fragile but real. Later that night, as Nathan checked on Ethan, he found himself staring down at the sleeping baby and whispering, "You saved me, you know. Before you, I only knew how to build things that made money. Now I want to build something that lasts." The next morning, a knock sounded at the door. When Nathan opened it, a man in a dark suit stood there, his assistant, Michael. "Sir, the board has been asking for you. They want answers about the merger." Nathan glanced back at the apartment where Emily was feeding Ethan. "Tell them I am taking a leave," he said. Michael hesitated. "A leave, sir? That could cost billions." "Then let it," Nathan said quietly. "I have spent half my life chasing billions. Now I am chasing time." When he closed the door, he exhaled slowly, as if releasing years of pressure from his chest. Emily looked up, curious. "Work?" He nodded. "They can wait." She smiled faintly. "The Nathan Reed I used to know would never say that." "Maybe that is why you left him," he replied. Her eyes softened. "Maybe that is why I might forgive him." For the first time, forgiveness did not sound impossible. It sounded like a promise forming in the quiet corners of their small apartment. That night, Nathan fell asleep on the couch, Ethan's crib beside him, the city lights painting faint lines of gold across the walls. Emily stepped out of her room, watching the two of them. The sight made her heart ache in a way that was not painful but tender, like remembering a song she used to love. In the hush of that moment, she whispered to herself, "Maybe this is how healing begins." Outside, dawn crept into the city again, washing everything in pale light, and inside that little apartment, the family that had once shattered was learning how to breathe as one. Autumn arrived quietly, painting the city in shades of amber and gold. The leaves drifted along the sidewalks outside Emily's apartment, and for the first time in years, Nathan found himself noticing small things, the smell of rain, the laughter of children on their way to school, the simple rhythm of a day that was not ruled by deadlines. Ethan had grown stronger, his tiny hands now reaching for everything within sight, his laughter echoing through the apartment like sunlight made of sound. Nathan often worked from the small table near the window, his laptop surrounded by baby toys and bottles. It was a far cry from the glass conference rooms and board meetings he once dominated, but somehow it felt more important. One morning, while Emily was folding laundry, Nathan received a message from his assistant. The board had set an emergency meeting to discuss replacing him as CEO. He stared at the screen for a long moment before setting the phone down. "Bad news?" Emily asked, her voice gentle. "They want me back," he said, "or gone for good." She studied him carefully. "And what do you want?" Nathan looked at her, the question sinking deeper than she intended. "I used to think I wanted control," he said. "Now I just want peace." Emily smiled softly. Then maybe that is the first good decision you have made in a long time. A knock at the door interrupted them. When Nathan opened it, a tall woman in a navy suit stood there, her expression professional but cold. "Mr. Reed, I am here on behalf of the Reed Industries Board of Directors," she said. "They are concerned about your absence and would like to schedule a press statement. Investors are nervous." Nathan listened quietly. "Tell them I will address everything in due time," he replied. The woman frowned. "Sir, the company needs you." Nathan glanced toward the crib, where Ethan was sleeping, his tiny chest rising and falling with perfect rhythm. "No," he said softly. "My son needs me." The woman hesitated, then nodded curtly and left without another word. When he closed the door, Emily was watching him. "That could change everything," she said. "It already has," he answered. Later that evening, Emily sat by the window holding Ethan while Nathan prepared dinner. The aroma of roasted vegetables filled the apartment, and the scene felt almost ordinary, something neither of them had believed possible months ago. "You know," she said, "you are not bad at this domestic thing." Nathan chuckled. "Do not sound so surprised." She smiled. "You used to burn toast." "I still do," he admitted. They both laughed, and for the first time in years, the laughter did not feel forced. After dinner, when Ethan had fallen asleep, they stood together by the window. The city stretched out below them, glittering like 1,000 second chances. "Do you ever miss it?" Emily asked quietly. "The power, the prestige." Nathan thought for a long moment. "Sometimes. But it is strange those things feel smaller now, like they belong to someone else." "Maybe they did," she said softly. "Maybe you had to lose everything to remember who you were." Nathan looked at her, the reflection of the city lights in her eyes. "And what about you, Emily? What do you want now?" She smiled faintly. "I want peace too, and maybe, someday, forgiveness." "I will wait for it," he said, "for as long as it takes." As the night deepened, the city's noise faded into the background, replaced by the quiet sound of Ethan's breathing from the other room. Nathan turned off the lights and stood in the doorway of the nursery, watching his son sleep. A year ago, he would have seen only fragility in that small frame. Now, he saw strength, proof that love could survive even the wreckage of pride. He whispered into the stillness, "You saved us, little one. You brought us back to life." Emily, standing beside him, reached for his hand. This time, she did not pull away. Their fingers intertwined naturally, as if the world had simply been waiting for this moment. Outside, the wind carried the scent of autumn through the open window, and inside, the Reed family began again, not with grand declarations, but with quiet understanding and the unspoken promise that they would never take this peace for granted again. Winter crept into the city quietly, the first snowflakes settling on rooftops and window ledges like whispers from the sky. Inside Emily's apartment, warmth glowed from the small fireplace Nathan had helped repair. The air smelled faintly of cinnamon and coffee, and the sound of Ethan's laughter filled every corner. He was learning to crawl now, his small hands pressing against the carpet as he tried to chase a toy car across the floor. Nathan sat beside him, guiding him gently, his large hands careful not to overwhelm. "You are fast," Nathan said softly, smiling as Ethan squealed with joy. Emily stood by the kitchen counter, watching them, her heart caught between the sweetness of the moment and the ache of everything they had lost before finding their way here. When she caught Nathan looking up at her, she smiled. "You are getting good at this," she said. "He likes you." Nathan chuckled. "I am starting to think I might like him too." She rolled her eyes playfully. "Only starting?" "All right," he said, his voice warm. "Maybe more than starting." They both laughed, and for a moment it felt as if the past had been erased. That afternoon, Nathan received another message from Reed Industries. The board had voted to remove him officially. His name would remain on the building, but his position, his power, his empire gone. He read the message silently, then placed his phone face down on the table. Emily noticed the stillness in his posture. "Is it bad news?" she asked quietly. "It is final," he said simply. "I am no longer the CEO." She waited for the anger or bitterness that used to follow moments like this, but none came. Instead, he leaned back, his expression calm. "You do not seem upset," she said. "I thought I would be," he admitted. "But it feels like losing something I outgrew." Emily nodded slowly. "Maybe you finally made space for something better." He glanced toward Ethan. who had fallen asleep with his small hand resting on Nathan's shoe. "Yes," he said, "I think I did." Days turned into weeks, and their little home settled into a quiet rhythm. Nathan took on small consulting work from home, advising businesses that once would have begged for his time. Emily returned to painting, her canvases filling the walls with color again, soft blues, gentle golds, scenes of light breaking through clouds. Sometimes she would catch Nathan watching her, admiration written in the quiet way his eyes lingered. One evening, after putting Ethan to bed, they shared dinner at the small table near the window. Snow drifted outside, catching in the streetlights. "You have changed," Emily said suddenly. "You are not the man I married." Nathan smiled faintly. "That is a good thing, I hope." "It is," she said. "Back then you were so determined to be perfect. I never asked for that. I just wanted you to be kind." He looked at her, his voice quiet. "And you were kind enough for both of us." She shook her head. "We were both lost." "Not anymore," he said. "At least, not in the same way." There was a pause, filled with the soft sound of snow falling outside. Nathan reached across the table, his hand resting over hers. "Emily," he said gently, "if I asked you to try again, not for the sake of the past, but for who we are now, what would you say?" She studied him for a long moment, her eyes reflecting both the hesitation and the hope she had carried for too long. "I would say," she whispered, "that maybe we never stopped trying. We just forgot how." Nathan's chest tightened, but in a way that felt freeing. "Then let us remember together," he said. Emily nodded, her eyes bright with unshed tears. In the next room, Ethan stirred softly, letting out a small sigh in his sleep. They both turned toward the sound instinctively, united by the fragile, powerful bond of love that had survived everything. Outside, the snow continued to fall, blanketing the city in quiet forgiveness. Inside, the Reed family began to heal not with grand gestures, but with the gentle grace of ordinary days, the kind that build forever. Spring returned to the city like a quiet apology, washing away the gray of winter with soft rain and the scent of blooming trees. In the small apartment, the windows were open, letting in the hum of life below and the laughter of a baby who had learned to stand by pulling himself up against the couch. Ethan's giggles filled the air as Nathan crouched nearby, ready to catch him if he stumbled. Emily watched from the doorway, her heart full in ways she could not explain. The man who once measured his worth in millions now clapped with joy at every wobbly step his son took. "He is fearless," Nathan said, smiling as Ethan reached for him. "He takes after his mother." "He takes after both of us," Emily replied, stepping closer. "He falls but keeps trying." Nathan looked at her, the weight of her words settling deeper than she intended. "That sounds familiar," he said softly. They shared a look that held both memory and forgiveness. Later that week, Nathan was invited to speak at a charity event for children's hospitals. At first he refused, but Emily encouraged him. "You should go," she said, "not as the old Nathan Reed, but as the man you are now." And so, he went. Standing before a crowd for the first time in months, Nathan spoke not of profits or success, but of loss, redemption, and the quiet courage of beginning again. "Sometimes," he said, his voice steady, "we build empires and forget the simplest things like why we built them in the first place. But when you hold something fragile in your hands and realize it trusts you completely, you learn that true power is not control, it is care." The audience was silent for a long moment before the applause came, slow and genuine. That night, when he returned home, Emily and Ethan were waiting. She smiled when he walked through the door, carrying a bouquet of white lilies, the same flowers he had once brought her in the hospital months ago. "How did it go?" she asked. "Better than I deserved," he said. "But I realized something." "What is that?" "That I do not want to rebuild Reed Industries. I want to build something that matters more." "Like what?" she asked. He glanced at Ethan, who was clutching one of Emily's paintbrushes. "Maybe a foundation for children who need care. Something in his name. The Ethan Reed Foundation." Emily's expression softened, pride and emotion crossing her face. "That sounds like something worth building." Over the next few weeks, Nathan worked quietly from home, drafting plans and reaching out to contacts not as a businessman, but as a father. His old colleagues were surprised to see him humble, thoughtful, grounded. "You sound different," one of them remarked during a call. Nathan smiled faintly. "I am different." One afternoon, as he prepared a proposal for the foundation, He found Emily painting by the window. The canvas showed a sunrise over a city skyline, soft light breaking through clouds. He walked over, studying the brushstrokes. "It is beautiful," he said. "It looks like hope." "That was the idea," she replied, smiling. "Maybe you can use it as the foundation's logo." "I would like that," he said, "because you gave me back my light." Emily looked at him, her eyes shining with quiet affection. "No, Nathan, you found it yourself. You just needed to stop looking in the wrong places." That night, after Ethan was asleep, they stood together by the window, the city lights stretching far beyond. The air smelled of rain and renewal. Nathan slipped his arm around her shoulders gently, not as a claim, but as a promise. "You know," he said, "for years I thought success was the point of life. Now I think it is love." Emily leaned her head against him. "Love and learning," she said. "You finally learned." Outside, thunder rolled softly in the distance, a reminder of storms they had survived. Inside, the warmth between them spoke of something deeper, a life rebuilt, not from wealth, but from grace. Summer returned with its golden heat and the sound of the city alive again. The small apartment that had once felt temporary now felt like a home. Ethan had turned one, his laughter brighter, his steps faster, his curiosity endless. Nathan had become an expert at catching him before every fall, while Emily had perfected the art of calming both of them with a single smile. Their days were simple morning walks in the park, afternoon naps, dinners filled with soft conversation and laughter that carried late into the night. Yet within that simplicity, there was peace that neither of them had ever known before. The Ethan Reed Foundation had officially opened, helping provide care for premature infants and support for struggling mothers. On the day of the opening, Nathan stood on stage holding Ethan in his arms, while Emily watched from the front row. "This," he said to the small crowd, "is not a speech about business or success. This is about second chances, the kind we rarely get. But when they come, they remind us what truly matters." When the applause faded, he looked toward Emily, their eyes meeting in quiet understanding. After the event, they took Ethan to the park nearby, sitting under a tree as the boy played in the grass. The sunlight caught in his hair, and Emily leaned back against the trunk, closing her eyes. "Do you ever think about what might have happened if we never found our way back?" she asked softly. Nathan looked at her, the question heavier than the summer air. "All the time," he said, "and every time I realize I would have built 1,000 towers and still felt empty." "Maybe that was the point," she said. "You had to lose yourself to learn how to see what was right in front of you." Nathan nodded, glancing at their son. "You and him, you saved me without even trying." "We did not save you," Emily said. "You saved yourself the moment you chose love over pride." He smiled, the words settling into his heart like truth he had been waiting to hear. As the sun began to dip lower, they packed their things and walked home, Ethan in Nathan's arms, the boy's head resting against his father's shoulder. That night, after putting Ethan to sleep, Nathan found Emily sitting on the balcony. The city stretched out before her, lights twinkling like distant stars. He joined her quietly, placing a light blanket around her shoulders. "You know," she said, smiling, "you used to hate quiet nights." "I used to hate myself," he replied softly. "Quiet just reminded me of that. And now? Now it reminds me that I am lucky." She turned to him, her eyes warm. "Lucky?" "Yes," he said. "Lucky that you ever let me back into your life." "I did not let you," she said with a small laugh. "You walked back in and refused to leave. Then thank you for not locking the door." Emily leaned closer, her voice gentle. "Maybe it was never locked." Nathan reached for her hand, their fingers intertwining easily now. "Emily," he began, "I know we cannot change the past, but I want to build the future together properly this time." She looked at him, her breath catching slightly. "Nathan, are you—" "I'm not asking for promises or grand gestures," he said quickly. "I'm asking for partnership. For every sunrise, every bedtime story, every argument, and every laugh. I want all of it with you." She studied him for a long time, the night air wrapping around them. Finally, she nodded. "Then we start again." Nathan smiled, relief and joy intertwining in his chest. Inside, Ethan stirred, letting out a sleepy sound, and they both turned toward the door instinctively. "That is our cue," Emily whispered. Nathan laughed softly. "Even the best moments come with interruptions. That is family," she said. Together they went inside, their steps quiet but sure. In the nursery, the small nightlight glowed warm against the soft blue walls. Nathan leaned over the crib, brushing his hand over his son's hair. "You brought us here," he whispered, "and we will make sure you always have a home filled with love." Emily placed her hand on his shoulder, and together they stood there, a family rebuilt from fragments, holding steady in the gentle rhythm of a second chance. Years passed, but the memory of that fragile beginning never faded. The city changed around them, buildings rising higher, lights growing brighter. Yet inside the Reed home, life unfolded in a rhythm that felt timeless. The Ethan Reed Foundation flourished beyond anything Nathan had imagined. It opened clinics across the country, giving premature infants and struggling families the hope that once saved his own. Each year, on Ethan's birthday, they hosted a small charity event where Nathan spoke not as a businessman, but as a father. "We are all born fragile," he would say, his hand resting on Ethan's shoulder. "But love makes us strong." People listened not because of his wealth, but because his words carried the quiet truth of a man who had lost everything and learned to build again from the heart. At home, life was simple, full of laughter and warmth. Ethan had grown into a curious little boy with his mother's kindness and his father's determination. Every morning, he would run into their bedroom, jumping on the bed to wake them. "Time to get up," he would shout, and Nathan would groan dramatically while Emily laughed, her voice carrying through the room like sunlight. The walls that once held silence now echoed with life. One Saturday morning, Nathan and Emily took Ethan to the park where the trees were heavy with green. Families picnicked nearby, children played, and the air smelled of summer. They spread out a blanket under a large oak tree, the same park where they had once sat in the early days of their reconciliation. As Ethan played with his toys, Emily leaned back against the tree trunk, watching Nathan chase their son across the grass. The sight made her heart swell. He was different now, softer, grounded, patient. The man who once measured time in profits now measured it in moments like these. When Nathan returned, breathless and laughing, he dropped beside her, pulling Ethan into his lap. "He runs faster every day," Nathan said, smiling. "He gets that from you," Emily replied. "No," Nathan said softly, looking at her. "He gets that from us, both of us." They sat there for a long while, the world around them fading into the hum of distant laughter and rustling leaves. Ethan eventually fell asleep, his small head resting against Nathan's chest. Emily watched them with quiet joy. "You know," she said, "there was a time when I thought we would never find our way back." Nathan glanced at her, his voice low. "I thought so too. But maybe some things are meant to break before they can truly last. Like glass that becomes stronger once it is reforged," she said thoughtfully. He nodded. "Exactly." As the afternoon light softened into gold, Nathan brushed a stray lock of hair from her face. "Emily," he said, "thank you for not giving up on me." She smiled. "I did give up once, but love did not." His chest tightened, the truth of her words cutting through him in the gentlest way. "Then I will spend the rest of my life making sure love never has to try so hard again." Emily reached for his hand, their fingers intertwining. "You already have," she whispered. They stayed like that until the sun began to set, painting the sky in shades of pink and gold. As they packed up to leave, Nathan carried Ethan in his arms, the boy's soft breathing steady against his shoulder. Emily walked beside him, her hand brushing his. The city glowed in the distance, alive and vast. Yet for the first time, Nathan felt that he truly belonged, not to his empire, not to his name, but to this moment, to the people who had taught him what being human really meant. When they reached home, Nathan tucked Ethan into bed and stood watching him sleep. Emily joined him, her head resting against his shoulder. "He has your eyes," she whispered. "And your heart," Nathan replied. For a long moment, they stood in silence, the glow of the nightlight wrapping them in warmth. Then Nathan spoke softly, his voice barely above a whisper. "I spent years trying to build a legacy. I did not know it would look like this." Emily smiled. "This is the only one that matters." Nathan leaned down, kissing her forehead gently. "He built empires," she murmured with a soft laugh, repeating the line that had once defined him. Nathan smiled back. "But tonight he built a family." Outside, the city lights shimmered, and inside, peace settled over them like a promise kept. The story of Nathan Reed and Emily Brooks was not one of wealth or success, but of rediscovery, a tale of two hearts learning, at last, that love, when humbled, is the greatest empire of all. In this emotional journey of love, loss, and redemption, a powerful billionaire learns that true wealth is not measured in numbers but in the hearts he rebuilds. This story captures the raw humanity behind every choice, transforming pain into purpose and pride into compassion. Inspired by the depth of millionaire stories, it follows Nathan Reed, a man who once ruled boardrooms but found salvation in the laughter of his child and the forgiveness of the woman he once lost. Through quiet moments, second chances, and the fragile beauty of family, the tale reminds us that the most meaningful millionaire stories are not about fortune, but about finding grace after failure. Every heartbeat, every whispered promise, and every act of love echoes the truth that even in a world of power and ambition, kindness remains the greatest legacy. This is one of those timeless millionaire stories that stays with you long after it ends, proving that redemption is the richest currency of all.